Welcome to Getting Real with the Costas. This special episode series will be an exclusive. Here, both me and my wife talk about the ins and outs of running a business, being married, developing our money mindset, our polarizing family dynamics, and taking big risks in our lives. You may have always wondered what relationships we have with our friends and family. How can we actually balance our work and our life routine? You may be wondering how we communicate as a couple, or even what our health goals and struggles are that come up in our day-to-day jazz. Well, you are in luck because we get to talk about all this personally and more. Completely unscripted. Welcome to Getting Real with the Costas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Getting Real with the Costas. This is episode number 5, and we're going to be talking about our social life, the boundaries that we have with friends, and how we prioritize who we choose to spend our time with and kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because people coming from our social media feeds and the things that people see with us on social media gives this almost not a facade, because everything that we show on social media is real, but it gives an impression upon people that we are always very, very available, because on social media that appears every single day, the availability on social media is like instant. So for us, we've been very, very careful on the way that we set boundaries. And I think it's great that we really talk about that. Do you want to start in terms of?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll share the differences of even our personalities. I am definitely more of an introvert and you're definitely more
Mhm.
outgoing. I grew up and I've always had friends, but it was always a group of friends. And I had one friend that I hung out with one on one and I felt comfortable with, but for the majority of the time I always hung out in groups, and that made me a little bit more comfortable, but I never really had a best friend. I wouldn't say I never had somebody who I would text every single day. I would not be able to have a friendship like that, to be honest with you. But I think that's probably why I've never really had a best friend, because for me, I need my space. I'm an introvert. I am not somebody who can go out every weekend. That really drains me. So I am definitely more of an introvert. I love hanging out with people. Once I'm with people and I get to know people, I really do love it. But I grew up dancing my whole life. So, after school, when everyone would go to the parties or they would hang out with each other, I would go to dance practice, or you know what I mean? So it's I grew up just kind of being more of an introverted person, and I still feel like I'm that way today.
It's interesting you talk about the way of introverted that way. Like as I grew up as a kid, big groups of friends, I was always the oddball out. And I started off as not a very weird kid, but I was caring, and people, I think, looked at it like I was almost too much. Like I really just wanted to be everybody's friend. So like the opposite happens, it's like you become nobody's friend, right? So I was always stuck in kind of in between groups where I didn't really have a place to fit. It was only really high school where I had like 3 to 4 really core friends, and other people were just acquaintances, right? But if it's one thing that I've always noticed is I think through me trying to connect with people, it gave me this ability to be really, really outgoing all the time. So I don't have an issue going into an event and I don't know anybody because I can talk to somebody. Or I don't have an issue meeting other family members or other friends of friends because I want to start that conversation. And a part of that's because, of course, we all want people to like us, but, for me, it is less awkward if I do the initial, hey, how are you? What's going on? Than it is to just have it out there. So when you talk about being introverted, it's like I wouldn't necessarily call myself an extrovert. I think it's like I love to speak to people and I like when people engage with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me, it's like I think there's a little bit of like, it especially as adults, right? Like, I kind of feel like everyone already has their friend group. Like, you see people on social media and it's like, we've been best friends since grade school, like 20 years. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of the times as adults, like it's sometimes hard to make new friends because in our eyes, we feel like everyone already has their friend group. But what I've realized through even speaking to like some of my closer friends is like we all want, we all need connection, number one. Like it's something that we all need. We need to feel connected to. We need to feel like we belong. Like it's core needs that we have to feel seen, to feel validated, to feel loved for who we are. And I think everybody wants to make that initiation, but there's always fear of like, are they gonna want a new friend in their friend group? Are they gonna accept me? Like, what does that actually look like? And I think that sometimes holds people back from actually it's like taking that initiative to like put themselves out there because it is pretty vulnerable. Like, it's sometimes hard, like what do you say or like how do you go about it, right? And I think like what we've done, especially like, just even moving into a new location, it's like we're just willing to, be vulnerable and put ourselves out there because we did really want to make it a goal to find new friends and like just connect with more people.
I think when, like, I can only speak to this for myself. When I was younger and I initially had friends, there was no boundaries. There wasn't even prioritizing me. It was really just like, can I relate to you? Can I connect? And do I like you? And that's probably why a lot of the friends that I had in the past don't translate to the future. Like I really only have now two friends from childhood. And that's because our bond over 30 years has been so strong that even if our situations changed, like I learned boundaries, I learned communication with this person, and we were on a deeper level than we were with everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But from all of those other people that were my friends, they never lasted, right? and
Mm-hmm.
and coming into here in Simcoe now, it's like, you and I had that conversation where we were like, man, like being an entrepreneur is it's fucking lonely, right?
Yeah.
It's, you don't have a lot of people you could talk to about this stuff. And I set out and I was like, I'm gonna make friends this year,
Mm-hmm.
right? But in making friends and in being in this part of our life, we also now are so self-aware that we come with boundaries, and I also come with expectations being a friend.
Yeah. Like I guess when it comes to like boundaries and stuff, like I need my friends, and my friends know this. Like, I am not somebody who's going to be texting you every single day. I'm not going to be texting you like, this is the outfit that I'm wearing. Like, what do you think? Like, I really don't have like the energy for that. Like, that's to me, like, just so draining. I'm like, I will never have a friend like that. For me, like the friends that I have right now, which are like just like a small handful, it's like we will talk like every once in a blue moon or whatever, but it's like the connection is still there. We can like pick up exactly where we left off. But also it's there's not this expectation of we have to hang out every single week. We need a text message every single day. Like there is no expectations because they know how I am. Like, you know, I am not that type of person that's going to be, I guess, like available, so to speak, to just like message whenever. And it's not like it's, I don't know, like I think because we have our own businesses and like you said, we have boundaries around there, it's just almost like a no-brainer to have like boundaries around conversations either because although like let's say on a Friday night or whatever, technically I do have downtime. A lot of the times it's like me recharging, or like Saturdays, like when, there's things that I do for my business. It's not like set in stone, but I do have a little bit more flexibility on the weekend. But a lot of the times it's like me filling up my own cup or even you and I spending time together. Right. So it's just kind of like having those boundaries as well too.
Yeah, and I think where boundaries was a good place to start for myself was when I had like there were never any friends because of the way that I acted with people that ever took advantage of me or pushed any specific thing in any way. So a lot of the times, like I never really had to have a boundary because of the way that the relationship was built, right? But through business and also the amount of communication that we have on social media, a lot of people have slowly become to this understanding that like we should just be available. Like being a business owner, we're available all the time because we set our schedule. And it's like, yes, I have power over my schedule and we set things. That being said, we're not available at a beck and call, or we don't have high accessibility. So it was really important that with these new friendships, we set what that looks like. And it doesn't have to have an odd conversation where it's like, I've never talked to my friends like, so I'm available between 5:30 and 8:30 p.m. Like, no, that's wild. You can't,
Yeah.
it's not like that. But going into an understanding and saying to people like, hey, I like deep conversations. I'm going to be like, there's an emergency, you can call me, but like, I'm not great with messaging, and
Mm-hmm.
my messages aren't an immediate type of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not someone who is going to hang out with you on the daily because I'm not willing to do that, right? When you have those conversations and you're actually willing to talk about that, you actually get to understand the real person behind what those boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the toughest part of it is like our friend group now knows our boundaries pretty well, and they're really
Mm-hmm.
good with that. But that's because they themselves also shared their boundaries.
Yeah.
But I feel like there are still moments in time where older friends and where family have not seen our growth,
Mm-hmm.
and they still think that we're in this high school level of availability all the time.
Yeah. And I think like I don't know. I think it's like understanding that like it's okay to not text back like the same day. It's okay to be like, hey, like I'm not free this weekend, but like, I'm free at this date. Like, does that work for you? No, I think it's just like, when people don't really understand like the boundaries, it's just like reinforcing it. Cause again, they might not be used to like, certain friends are definitely not used to having boundaries. Like, you know what I
Yes.
mean? So
Yeah.
like they're like, what is a boundary? Like, what isn't that just with like maybe family members or whatnot, or like with toxic people? But like boundaries are also with friendships as well too. So it's like those people who've never had boundaries in their life or with like friendships, it's like when we set a boundary, they might just forget. Like it's not like they're like trying to cross a boundary or whatever, but it's just like they might not like, remember, right?
There are holy cow people though that get really caught off guard when you show up if you've never been someone
Yeah.
who does boundaries before and you draw a line in the sand, you can catch people off guard because they've
Mm-hmm.
never seen any of this before. And the thing is a boundary doesn't offend people because it's you saying it, but because there's something within them that recognizes that now they have to change or there's no longer an availability.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's something like a great example of this is the whole like I can pick up the phone and call you on the spot, right? A lot of the times I can't pick up the phone and call you on the spot. And going from living at home where that was just something that was really obvious all the time to when I now had my business where when I would see a call come in, the first couple of times I almost felt bad, like even telling my own mother, like, hey, when I see your call, like I literally just can't pick it up right away. Like, obviously, if there's an emergency and you say that, but like, there's other things that I
Mm-hmm.
have planned that I'm doing, and it might take me half a day to respond, right? And I know that that catches people off guard because they're like, oh, is it me? Do
Yeah.
they not want to talk to me? Or is there something about what I'm doing that's made them do this? But it's really just the protection of my time. So that way I can make sure that I'm living and showing up to the fullest for these other people.
Yeah. And I think like our evolution of friendship has changed as well too. Like I know for me, like starting my business, like it's very lonely sometimes being an entrepreneur. And I've always wanted like entrepreneur friendships. I'm like people who get me, like, they're gonna be great friends because they're not gonna be people who want to stay up until 5 in the morning and just get like shit faced and like, you know what I mean? Like they want to connect and they want to talk about growth and they want to talk about like, building businesses and like doing big things in the world and making an impact. And I'm like, oh, I really love that. But I think I've kind of like not transitioned out of that, but I think I've always wanted friends like that, but now I'm starting to recognize like I want friends that honestly, like whether they have a business or not, but like we don't talk about business stuff because like my day, I'm in my business, like we're in our business like every single day. So to have friends where we can still like have like those deeper conversations and talk about like goals and life and whatever, but it's not just about like business talk. I think that's so refreshing. Like even tonight, we're going out to this fair with one of my friends, one of our friends, and like we don't talk about like business, you know what I mean? We just talk about like life, and it's like sometimes that's just really refreshing, and it is really fun because we all need to kind of like decompress. Like maybe you have friends from work and that's great, but there might be still some conversations about work, and it's like when you have people that are outside of that, like I'm even trying to make friends, at my yoga studio that I just started attending, and like we're doing different things, and it's not just about business and entrepreneurship, and it's just fun.
I think one thing though that's always going to be a challenge is the majority of people our age are intimidated by us. And I know that there are even people in our family who I can see why it would be really intimidating, because as like we're not old people, right? Like I just turned 31 this year, right? Or in December. And it's like when people listen to like the businesses we have or the things that we do, it can be really easy for someone to like compare themselves and then be like really intimidated and not have that level of friendship. But same thing works the other way, where like a lot of my friends are way more successful than I could ever be. And sometimes I'm like, oh, holy shit, all right, well, you're doing that and I'm just, minding my own business. Like it kind of works both ways that way.
Yeah. And I think like a lot of the times, like when I've reached out to like my friends and stuff, and I'm like, hey, like I haven't seen you in so long. And like it's always the same thing of like, I didn't want to bug you. Like, I know that you're busy with your business. Like, I didn't want to bug you. But then I still have kind of that thought as well, too. Even if somebody doesn't have a business, like I'm thinking about one friend from like grade school when we hung out with her. And she was like, I know you guys have your own thing. Like, I didn't want to like bug you or whatever. But I'm like, I felt the same way. Like this person, one of my friends, like she always has like a birthday or a get together or like a family things going on. So I'm like, I don't want to like interrupt that as well too. But I think that's everyone kind of has that mindset of like, oh, I don't want to be bugging you. But it's not bugging. Like if you have like boundaries, then it's just like, hey, no, I'm not free, or like, hey, this is a day that I'm free. So it's like it's also taking that initiative as well too. Like I've definitely taken initiative a few times with like friends from even like high school, and now that I moved to a different city and location, like I'm still like making an effort to connect back to them and be like, hey, like you want to catch up. So it really is just like taking that initiative and not being afraid if like somebody says no or like they can't. Like it's nothing about you, it's just like they may be busy or whatever, right?
I think something that we should talk about too is the different types of boundaries that we have, because like we started this off, and why we wanted to do this podcast is or this episode is really about the difference between our boundaries from a social media perspective and like our actual social life, which is really really different. Like you, especially, you're on your like on Instagram, on TikTok, you're on there daily. And even people, like your boundary there is like you're giving free information, you're having that conversation, but like we have a boundary where it's like we don't do coaching because we don't know the person, right? And that would be unfair for them, right? And also too, you're like I can't message back every human being that, because you've got millions of comments. I don't, because I don't. I don't have that same following. But I feel like when they see that, and then people meet us in real life, they're almost expecting that same level of accessibility when people start, right?
Yeah.
Like you've had people, when you're going to yoga and stuff like that, right? Like how's that been for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is getting real with the Costa sauce. So we're just gonna get real, but it's like, sometimes if people that I like meet in real life, which sounds so weird,
Yeah. Well, it's
I meet
it's the
in real
reality.
life, but like, like they'll message me or whatever. But like sometimes, like I won't respond until like I have a minute, right? Because like my main focus is my business. My main focus is my clients. My main focus is you, like our family, my business. So it's like, I will still respond absolutely, but like even this one person, messaged me, whatever, and it was like, I responded on like a Friday, and I think the message was on like a Monday or something like that. And it was just like, it wasn't like, hey, you want to hang out? It was just like responding to like my story or something like that. Or
Mhm.
like, you know, like whatever, like a response, like a comment or whatever. You know what I mean? So I'm like, it's not like there's something urgent, or it's not like somebody's asking me a question, but like, when somebody comments on like one of my stories, like, oh, that looks like a nice walk path or something, like I'm just like, yeah, like it is like heart,
Mhm.
like, you know what I mean? So there's that. And you know yeah, it's tough because you want to be like, I want to be somebody who like builds those friendships. And I've always kind of imagined like, just like having, yeah, like having just like a group of friends where we can just like laugh and joke around and stuff like that, and like, message back and forth and respond to stories and like have that fun conversation. But every single time that it happens, I'm like, I don't have the energy for this. Like,
Mhm.
it's just sometimes it's a lot because I'm constantly responding to clients and my TikTok messages and my comments. And then so it feels like I'm actually talking to people all day, which I really am.
Mhm.
So then once I get like a comment that's, not business related, it's not like somebody's like, you message me like, hey, I'm interested in your coaching. You'll get a message like within like, I'm so quick. But then if you're just like responding to like, one of my stories, or like if it's, somebody that I just met and they're not really asking a question, like I said, they're just making a comment of like, oh, that flower looks nice, or like you have a cute outfit. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna like
Mhm.
respond right away, maybe. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's
It's crazy because I and my take on social media, like I literally just see it from a business standpoint, right? Like if I didn't need the platform, I wouldn't be on it. And that's just my personal opinion, guys. Um, but when I think where the toughest part for me is when someone listens to like some of our stories and they listen to our posts and they go, I've been listening to your stuff for 2 months. I know you. I know who you are.
mm-hmm.
You don't know us. And what I mean by that is sometimes people almost think that they have a personal relationship, although we've never met. And they're like, oh, hey, boom, chummy, super this, or like have that communication. And I'm like, I actually, we've never met before. I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about you. And that's the only downside to the social media aspect for me is like, and there have been a few, I mean, it's not awkward, but it's uncomfortable where like I've been at a networking event and then I'm talking to somebody and someone walks up and they're like, oh, and they like grab me and they're like, oh my God, you're Lorna's husband, right? Oh, I hear everything about you. And I'm like, I have no idea who the fuck you are, right? Like, I don't know who you are.
Because I
And
post
it
you on
makes,
my
no,
stories
no,
all the
but like
time.
the reason why it makes me uncomfortable is because it's impossible for me to establish a boundary with someone I don't know
Yeah.
because they feel that they know me,
Yeah.
right? It's like you could spend an entire year watching like Dwayne the Rock Johnson and be like, I know him, I know his mom's name, I know his thing, this, and then he meets you in person, he's like, no disrespect, but like, give me my space, I don't know who you are, right? And it's the same thing. And that's why I feel like our relationships with friends are different
Mm-hmm.
because I actually know that person. I
Yeah.
get to communicate with them. And then, if anything, the communication and the way I respond is different. So, like a lot of, at least my friends, a lot of my friends never ever saw any of my social media stuff before this.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, cool, like you're a coach, or like, and they're not like watching my stuff or doing a bunch of things. Like they just know me as a human being. And I almost feel better about it being that way.
Well, it's interesting that you said that because, with me moving and, meeting new people, around here and then having them see my social media, like sometimes, sometimes it's like, sometimes I just like, I don't know.
I don't know why you feel bad about it though.
No, because you know what? I want people to be my friend for me. I don't want people to be my friend because of like my social media
Or you're following.
or like, like I don't know. It's really weird, but it's like, like even when I go to like my yoga studio or whatever, right? Like I almost like don't want them to like find me on social media, which I don't mind if they do, because mostly everyone has me on social media because I go to the yoga studio every single day. Like everyone knows me now, but like, it's almost like I just want to meet them and like they just see how I interact with them at the yoga studio or like in person or whatever. And versus like, them finding me on social media, because it's not like I'm like different in person versus on social media, but like I want people to like me because of like my personality and whatnot, not like what I post on social media, because that's like my business stuff. Like I want people to like me for Lorna, not like I don't want people to like, I don't want to be hanging out with people that I've just met and they're like, they see me as the binge eating coach. Like that's for my clients, that's for social media. But when I hang out with people in person, I want them to be like, this is Lorna. Like I like Lorna, not binge eating coach. That's why like I sometimes get weird. Like when people like find me on my social media and we just met in person, like it's totally fine. But I'm like, I want you to see Lorna. I don't want you to see like Lorna, the binge eating coach.
Yeah,
So
I feel the exact same way. And now we take that and add on to the fact that we actually do coaching for a living. That's another thing too, is like, you don't want to be seen for your social media, but you also don't want to be seen as the coach, because a lot of, one of the biggest boundaries that I set early is like, when I'm your friend, I'm like coaching Andrew. Like if I'm working and I typically, Lorna doesn't do a lot of this, but like I work with a lot of friends and family, right? And I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm willing to work with people that are my family members and stuff. But even then, I set a boundary at the beginning. When we're doing coaching, it's about your health, it's about yourself, your whatever, and about action steps. And when we're in friend and family mode, that's different. So like our friends and our family, like I'm not at a restaurant and my friends are like, Andrew, how many calories is this? What should I pick on my menu? Like that's not the Andrew that you're spending time with and building a relationship with. That's me, the human being, right? And it's super tough because I feel like that is a boundary. So again, with the social media piece, when I go to networking events, the moment somebody hears I'm a coach, they're like, tell me what to do. And I go, so actually, we're just having a conversation. I don't really know you. And I have to set that boundary. And it catches people off guard a little bit because they're like, oh, I thought you were a coach. And I'm like, and it has nothing to do with money. It's not like, oh, I don't coach unless you pay me. No, it's that like when I am communicating and networking, that's what I'm doing. I'm not showing up as doing coaching or with Coach Andrew and like, do you know what I mean by
or
that?
like, but even just like
I don't
hanging
know if I'm
out.
saying it right.
No, but even like hanging out with like friends and family. You know what I mean? Like at a social event or a get together. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like, hey, so like tell me what to do. It's like, no, we're hanging out. We're chilling right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Or like, don't judge me, Andrew. I'm only eating this one time. And I'm like, I don't care if you have guac and chips right now. Like I'm fine.
But that's the thing. It's like when we're out in public, which like again seems so weird, but like when we're in like, in-person things, like sometimes it is like I feel like if we, go out with people or whatever, like I still feel like sometimes people see me as us as like, oh, they're the health coaches or whatever. So it is sometimes hard to not be yourself, but it's sometimes, like I said, I just want like I wish like people can separate that identity when they like, hang out with us in person, because when I'm hanging out with you and like we're having a good time, like I'm not a binge eating coach. Like, you know,
Mhm.
it's like I'm Lorna and we're gonna have fun and we're gonna do what we want to do. Like that's it kind of thing, you
Yeah.
know.
And
But
the one of the hardest things is it's not a different person.
mm-hmm.
When we show up, it's not like, and when I talk about Coach Andrew and in-person Andrew to make it easy to understand,
Yeah.
but it's all the same human being. What it is, though, is it's the comfortability of boundaries and the lines that we cross.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like, for example, like I would say, like, don't call me past 8 o'clock, right? Like, I don't turn into a different Andrew if you call me at 2 a.m. Well, you're probably going to get a different, a different Andrew if you call me at 2 a.m. But it's like, I'm the same person. It's just, it's a respect thing for me. And that building of a relationship for me, the things that I value in a relationship is someone who respects me, someone that I can trust, because trust is everything. If I can't trust you, then there's no way that this friendship
Yeah.
or family relationship could ever work. So it's respect, it's trust. And then what it comes down to is communication.
Mm-hmm.
You might come across something and you're like, I don't like the way that that happened. Okay. Talk about it,
Yeah.
because people are like, oh, hey, you brought something up. I don't fly that way. Or hey, you know what? Maybe we could have talked about it a little different. Cool. We know now because we communicated it. Because a lot of the lack of boundaries and where people start to get upset in social settings and in relationships is when people don't know and that's not communicated.
Mm-hmm.
That's when things get really confusing.
Yeah. Something I want to bring up is like, I think I've had a bit more of a challenging time meeting new people and having new friendship because like I've always seen like like I grew up in grade school with a few like good friends, but I say that they were my friends, but they were also kind of bullies at the same time. Like
Mm.
they were my friends, but like they would talk behind my back, or like they would, you know, say one thing to me, but then they're all like giggling over here. And you know what I mean? So I think that really held me back from like meeting new friends because I'm like, I don't have time for drama. I don't have time for gossip. Like, I was never really, it was hard for me to open up to a lot of my friends because I'm not the type of person that, like, if you tell me something, I keep it to myself. I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to go to this person you know, gossip about it. Like, I just, that's so,
Were all of your friends in high school girls?
yeah.
Or I feel like having friends that are girls, like the way that men communicate with each other is like they're really direct. Okay. And if you have a problem with somebody, you're going to know you have a problem with somebody. And then it just like disappears, or like the friendship disappears.
Yeah.
Right. But girls do this like thing, and I've seen it in high school where it's like the gossip, the secrets, the
Or,
sometimes people get invited and don't get invited and you don't make the list, or you're a friend until someone else is available and then you're not the friend anymore, right? And that's like
or
crazy to me.
you're having a converse like I will, you know, there was this one friend that I met in one of my certification programs, and you know, very nice girl, and I was like super excited to make friends with her, but every time I would have a conversation, she's like, okay, don't tell anyone that I told you, but this person said this. And I'm like, if you're saying that to me, I'm like, I can't tell you anything because you're probably going to say what I'm saying to other. I like, I just don't have the time. I don't
Yeah.
have the energy for that. Like, I want friends who like I can have trust with, like, you know, so I think that's why it's been really hard for me to make friends truly, because I didn't want I didn't want to be in this circle of like gossip or whatever, you know. So yeah.
Interesting. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that they were that
I
they
think
had
that's
that
why, like,
dominant.
anytime it's like, yeah, I mean, like, I'll never forget this one time in grade school. I was in grade 7, no, grade 6, grade 5. maybe grade 5. Is it really young? I don't know. I think it was grade 5, to be honest with you. And one of my friends, quote unquote friends, she dyed her hair. And like we're young, like grade 5, grade 7, whatever it is.
I think it's like 10 or 11 or
Yeah,
something.
whatever.
Yeah.
So she came to school and she like dyed her hair. Like all the attention was on her, like, whatever, right? And then the next day, or like, I don't know, maybe like a week after or something like that, I remember asking my mom, I'm like, I want to do that to my hair. Like, I want to get highlights. So my mom was like, okay, like just highlights, like you're not dyeing your whole head, like just get a little bit of highlights. So I was so excited. I'm like, I'm going to be popular. Like, I'm going to go to school. Everyone's going to like, be so shocked. So I remember going to school and I was so excited to get attention because I'm like, I finally have these like highlights in my hair. Like, I'm so cool. And I remember getting to school and my 2 other friends literally pretended that they didn't even notice my highlights in my hair. And I was so confused. Like, obviously, I'm not going to be like, oh, do you like my hair? So I wasn't saying anything. And I was wondering why they were so quiet. And the truth was, my friend didn't even dye her hair. Like, she didn't go to the hair salon. She bought like that box, the box dye. So it was like fake dye. So when she actually saw that I went to a hair salon and I actually did it for real, she was like, oh shit, mine's just fake,
God.
and it was like, really? Like, you can't even be happy for me? Like, just like stuff like that, and yeah, I don't know. Like, I would love to have like a best guy friend. I always tell you this.
So this is going to lead into a side note thing, okay? And maybe y'all can prove me wrong on this, and if you can, that's totally good, okay? But in my experience, women having guy friends, every guy that becomes the friend of a woman is waiting for that woman to be free or available, or they're a friend until you say, do you want to be something more? And of all of the chances that I've seen this in my life, my best friend had was a guy friend to a girl that then he ended up dating. Okay, the a colleague at my automotive site, okay, was best friends with the manager, okay, and she was female, and they were friends for 6 years before, guess what, they started dating. And he started dating literally like right after she broke up with her other. It was almost like he was waiting for their relationship to end, right? So I think you like hanging out with guys because there's no drama.
That's literally, and I just feel like it's just straight facts. You know what I mean? Like it, I don't know. I just think it's fun,
But by the
but
way, we didn't start off as friends, just so
yeah, we did not start off as friends, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always wanted like a best guy friend. But yeah, every single guy that I'm like, I want to be best friends with, they were so excited and they're like thinking that it was going to turn into something more until it didn't. And then like, boom, the friendship just went to shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always wanted a guy friend, or like guy friendships, because again, I just think it's easier for me to like communicate with them sometimes when it's not like, hey, did you hear about this? It's just like, just like talk. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just, I think it's fun.
I think that is why
But
the majority of our friends are older. Right?
yeah, but I also think it would be so weird. Like, I think it would be so weird if you had like a girl friend.
No. So just like I talk about this, the same thing is in reverse, right?
Yeah.
Like there's the word friendship is so like like we have a lot of business connections, and some of them are like, some of my business connections are female and we network together and other stuff like that. But I'm not going to go out to dinner at 7:30 at night and spend an evening, because that's a date. That's you know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be
And
so weird.
and that's what that is. That energy, you can't help but build that. And it's like there's no need for that, right? I think for us, like, we have a lot of friends that are guys and girls, but they're partners, they're couples. When we hang out in groups.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of like it's so funny because I'm like, oh, I would love like a guy best friend. But then if you were like, hey, I have a girl best friend, I'd be like, bitch, what the fuck?
And I mean, like, and we've talked about this. I don't care who your friends are, right? I was like,
Yeah.
you want to have a friend. Like, that was one thing. We've never limited each other that way. It's like,
Oh yeah, for
I have
sure.
1,000% trust in her. And it's like, you
Yeah.
have friends to be friends, right? But I also I've seen the sides of, what
Yeah.
guys do. And also being a guy, I know it's like, if you can't make friends somewhere else, you're probably waiting for something. Like, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think now we have older friends,
Mm-hmm.
and our friends are at least 10 years older than us.
Yeah.
And what I find with older people is there's less drama because they have no patience for it.
Yeah. Well, they're
That's
just,
they're like, at this point in my life, there's no nonsense,
yeah.
right? Like, I've got enough stuff.
Yeah.
I don't need any more nonsense,
Yeah.
right? Or friend drama. But I also think too, it's because we're very responsible people. So
Yeah.
we found like-minded people who are equally as responsible.
Yeah. And we also don't like, flake on plans. Like we are very integral with our word. Like, there are some times where we make plans and I'm like, I do not want to go, but I go anyways. Like 99.9% of the time when I make plans, I'm like so excited at the time. Like, this is going to be so much fun. And then it's here and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
no, it's here already. But then, you go and you have a lot of fun. And, we're not those type of people that are going to be like, oh, sorry, can't. Like, no, last minute, we're just going to bail. Like,
or what one of the biggest pet peeves that I experienced in college was what we call alternate plans. So like, I'm gonna make plans with you. So it's like someone says to me, hey Andrew, we're gonna meet at this place, it's gonna be awesome, we'll hang out. Perfect. Okay. And then when better, I'll put in quotations, better plans come along,
yeah.
I'm the one who gets ditched. And to me, that anyone who doesn't have that lack of commitment, that's also another good boundary as well, too,
Yeah.
right? Is when I'm a friend, when I'm a friend with someone and I say, I'm going to help you with something, I'm going to go somewhere, I do it. A part of the
Yeah.
boundary is if I do that, someone else needs to do that too. That I don't want to be second on the scale, or I don't want to be the emergency backup plan,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not going to be good either.
Yeah.
Right. But I think us being responsible, we've
Mm-hmm.
gotten good people.
Why don't we talk about like our vision of friendship? Like for me, like I've always told you, like I've always envisioned, like I would love to go on vacation with a bunch of couples, like us, and then like you're saying yes as if like I've never told it. I've said this so many times.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, you talk about it a lot, but what would that actually look like?
Honestly, I think it would just be so fun, like having like 3 or 4 couples, like going away on vacation and just like
No. So what I mean by that, and maybe I should clarify, is like, are you like, I want to take a vacation where the couples wake up together and they meet for breakfast and then they meet for lunch and then we do these things,
well, I
and then
mean,
guys hang out with girls or vice versa, and then we come back for dinner? Like, are you envisioning that we are going to spend every waking
you're way
moment
too
with these
logical.
people,
I
or
didn't
like...
even plan that. Like, I'm like, I don't know. I just want to go on vacation. But I think it would be fun to just like, I've always loved hanging out with like even with my friends. Like, we would go to New Year's, like we would go to my friend's house for like New Year's Eve, and they're like all single. And I'm like, I'm bringing my husband. Like, I just love that. I think I love hanging out with like other people with you.
Oh, thanks.
But that's really all I do now. Like, I never really, like, I hang out with some people by myself, but like usually not. But I don't know. I think it would be fun, like even if we go on vacation and like we do our own thing, but then we meet up for dinner, or like we meet up and we go dancing or things like that. I think that'd be so much fun.
Yeah,
Like,
that I'm okay with. I think where it's too much for me is like, because you and I, we like our personal space.
yeah.
Okay. Like, you're very much a homebody. You like being here. You've got your routine. I like to do things. I don't like to be restricted. And I
Yeah, like
think
we
by
have to do
that
this
it's,
at this time and there's
yeah. So like, I'm okay if there's like a couple times a week we have a plan and a commitment, and that's fine. But it's like everything else in our life is relatively structured. So I like my free time to be free without
yeah.
that, right? So when I envision that, sometimes you're like, I just want to have friends that, like, I'm almost thinking it's like we're around a campfire morning till night. We're talking with these people, doing whatever. Like, they sleep in the next room, and they're like playing pranks on it. Like, and I'm like, that's too much for
Yeah,
me.
no, I know. But even like a weekend, like you mentioned about like camping, like I don't think we're campers, but like, like a weekend somewhere or whatever. I think it would just be fun. I don't know. But,
For me, which I'm actually happy with, that this year I've actually found friends like this. Like, my friendship and the way that we interact is like, I want to talk about, and like, when I say this, I don't mean like heavy stuff, but I want to talk deep and talk real with people.
mhm.
I'm tired of surface level conversations. Like, what I call the conversations is like with the boys conversations, where it's like,
Yo,
how
dude,
many
what's up?
drinks did you have?
What
And
up, bro?
remember 15 years ago when we got smashed? Like, that doesn't light me
Yeah.
up anymore. But when people like share dreams and share goals, and we're really connecting, that's my idea of like good quality friendship,
Yeah.
where it's like, I could trust this person with my kid.
Yep.
I could, you know what I mean? Like, I want to
We
be
don't
able
have a
to,
kid, but
yeah, but in the
I'm
future, right? Like,
joking.
I can see ourselves with the group of friends that I have now,
Yeah.
okay? And it's crazy because some of their kids are literally like
Our age, we're
10
basically
years
their
10 years
kids.
younger than us. But I see it's like we're getting older, and these people are like teaching lessons to our children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that community aspect, where it's like a village raises a family, that's the type of relationships that I want.
Makes sense.
Mhm. How do you feel like your family stuff, your family dynamic has changed around the boundaries that you've set recently?
You want to talk about family stuff in this episode?
Hmm. Oh, if you want to, I mean, we can just talk about the boundaries aspect, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
shouldn't know if we were going to do a separate episode on family stuff.
I think doing separate on family would be good because there's a lot of stuff there. But I think from a boundary perspective, like we're talking social, I think it's also important.
Well,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I
If you
mean,
want to, I don't care.
yeah, no, for sure. I think, like my parents, like I've moved away to school before. So my parents were always very used to like me like not being there, and like I've always done my own thing. Like I've always had my own space. Like even when I was living at my parents' house, like I was in my bedroom and I was working, or I was on the couch and like they gave me space, right? However, like of course they want to see us all that, like, of course my parents like love. It's so funny. We get to my parents' house and they're like, Andrew. And I'm like, hi. They're like, Andrew. And I'm like, okay, I'm here as well too, but all the attention is on Andrew.
I'm the best.
You are. I get it. So obviously they love us coming or whatever, but like I have a strong boundary of like I live in Simcoe,
Mhm.
and
We've both been trying to build that this is
yeah,
this is our new home
this is
now.
our new home, right? So my parents understand that, right? So like we'll go over because family is still very important. So like we went over for Easter to my parents' house and we still had that. But my mom was like, hey, are you guys gonna stay the night? And I was like, no, we're coming at this time, we're having dinner, and we're leaving that same night. And she was totally fine with that. But like we have, like, to me that's a boundary, because not that I don't want to stay over or whatever, but we have our own life. Like Sunday I'm like, I gotta do cooking, I gotta do the laundry, like I have my yoga class that I want to go to, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it's like, there's nothing wrong with like staying over and whatnot, but it's also like, like we don't live here anymore. So it's like, hey, we're going to come visit you. We're going to spend that quality time.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too that we can talk about too, is like when I go to my parents' house, like I want to spend quality time. I don't want to be like on my phone or working all the time. So it's like, that's why we have like these windows where it's like, hey, I'm available from this to this. So we can spend that quality time and then we can go on and do our own thing.
Yeah. I think from my family's perspective, so when I grew up, like, sure, we had our private space and stuff, but heavily like my immediate family always even if we weren't spending quality time, someone would be watching something on the TV and one person's on the couch, and like there was always that closeness that was there, right? And when we moved here, I said to myself, hey, like I can't, like I was going up every week, right? And to me, it was too much because from the time that it took to do the drive, because we live an hour away from my family now, to even as well too, like my own personal space, it was like I had never moved out because I was always there. And that was tough. It was tough on me and it was tough on my family because obviously like I have a really close relationship with my mom. Like I like my well, I have a relationship with everyone, but like me and my mom, like we talk a lot, other stuff. Like we were the type of people that used to stay up late night until like 10:30 or 11 o'clock and just talk to each other, right? And then the moment that came here, that almost went from 100 to zero, right? So in showing up every week, what ended up happening was it was like there was no break of a connection because I never felt like I had my own space, right? So we had conversations on setting boundaries, which is really just like, hey, listen, like uh, I can't come over all the time because it's far. Like we have our life here, we're trying to build it here. So now we make a point of what I'm probably there, what maybe twice a month, I would say. But it's like that has a better boundary and a better relationship, and we still communicate and we still do those other things because that relationship to me is important. But the boundary of time and personal space was really big. And then, the second boundary that I found was like everybody was really used to because I had lived at my mom's house of like, I'm gonna ask Andrew's mom if Andrew's free instead of like message me if
Yeah.
I'm free, and I
Yeah.
will let you know. And that was another thing that we had to work through too, which I didn't realize how many things she had to ask.
Yeah.
Are you free now? People are wondering if you're coming here. And that's when, and I think you did this too. Well, actually, you were a lot better than this, where we were like, hey, message us from now on. Like, if you
Yeah.
want to talk to me, and I will let you know if I'm free.
I think another thing too is like, like even when I go to like my parents' house or whatever, right? And it's like they want to see us, they want to talk to us, like they want to know everything that's going on. And I'm just like, let's say it was like a work day and we had to work, right? And it's like, I'm going downstairs for a glass of water. I'm going downstairs for a glass of water. But like, I'm not going downstairs to have a full on conversation. It's not that I don't want to, but then I feel bad because I'm like, I literally have a call in 2 minutes. Like, I want to spend that quality time. So for me, it felt like it was worse, like showing up more and barely spending time and always feeling like, sorry, I'm not able to spend time with you. Like, I have a coaching call versus, hey, Saturday, we're going to spend all day together. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there is that more quality time versus like showing up more often, but we have a business. So like, I'm not going to be just like sitting down for 6 hours on one day having a conversation, and I never wanted to be that type of person that was like, sorry, I can't talk to you right now. Like I'm in a meeting, but like, that's just the reality of like having our own business.
Yeah.
So it's like when we dedicate that time, like a Saturday, or wherever, when we can actually like have dinner, sit down, have quality time, like that's more like it's better for both of us.
Exactly, right. It's so funny because that very same, like on Wednesday, right, when I went to that networking event,
Yeah.
right? So this event ran really late and I had a call, and the call was in the evening, and it started at 8 o'clock. Okay.
8 to 9:30. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I had finished the networking, it was like 7:50, and I was like, I can't do this call in the car. And my closest is my mom's house, right? So I walk in, I felt so bad because I walk in, there's 2 minutes to start this call. My family, my grandparents are there, and I was like, hello, I'm late to a call.
Yeah.
I gotta hop on the call. And I feel bad because I'm like, I want to spend time with them, but also it's like I have this call that I already have a commitment to, right?
Yeah.
And for me, like my own personal boundary is like when I set a commitment, I stay true to that commitment, right? So your boundaries are always going to be tested. There's always going to be things that come up that make you say, oh, is this boundary still valid? Or how do I communicate this? But you have to be willing to work through those things in order for it to.
Well,
to
even
stay.
on Saturday when we went to my parents' house, right? I've committed to a TikTok live every day at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Like I've committed to that. And it was funny because I started with just like 30 days and it's literally been probably like 4 months now, 3 months or something crazy like that. Probably 3 months or whatever. And, so I'm like, hey, I'm just going to go upstairs, do a TikTok live. And my parents were like, yeah, do whatever you got to do. But then like when I came downstairs, like we weren't on our phones. We weren't like, we were present. Like we had dinner, we spent that quality time. And I think that's really, really important. Right. So it's like, it might not be more, actually it is more time because it's quality time and it's more time when it's like dedicated, and there's like a purpose, like, hey, we're going to come visit you. Not like, hey, we're going to stay over, but like we work. So, and then that's really tough. Like I said, you want to have conversations. You don't want to feel like you're ignoring the person. Like I'm just going to quickly go downstairs, make myself something to eat and then rush upstairs. But it's like, I also don't have time for like a full on conversation. And it's not like being mean, it's just like the truth, right?
I think most people give up on their boundaries because they either feel guilty.
Yeah.
So they're like, they feel the feelings reciprocated by the other person. Okay. They're too shy. So they don't ever want to disclose what the boundary is because they don't, and they feel like they don't deserve it.
Yeah. For us though, it's like, if you set the boundary like right at the beginning, then it's so much easier versus like for us, like when we first moved in, it was like we were going back so often, and then it was like we put these boundaries in place, and then it was like, wait, what did I do something wrong? Like, what happened? But it was like we wanted those boundaries all along. It just we didn't really set them.
Yeah, and like I know it's easy for us to say like set the boundaries at the beginning. 90% of the relationships and friendships that you have already exist. So it's like just because they already exist doesn't mean I can never bring up a boundary with these people ever. No, you do. You sit down and you say, hey, I just want to have a conversation on something. And because like, here's the thing. If people truly care about you, they're absolutely going to respect your boundary.
Yep.
Right? My family was not mad. They were not like, how dare you want to make Simcoe your personal home? No, they were like, yeah, we totally get that. You don't live here anymore. That makes sense. Right? And it's like, people who care about you will respect your boundary, right? And people who don't care, or those people who you're like, I don't know, it's a real big hassle to have this person in my life, they're going to be the ones who will fight you on your boundary. And if anything, that will give you clarity to be like, yeah, you know what, maybe I do need to think about this relationship, or maybe I do need to, really put a hyper focus on this boundary if it's something that's always been an issue.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I think
we freaking crushed it.
Yeah.
We nailed it.
Boom.
Bam.
I also want to say one last thing before we wrap up here.
What? No, just kidding.
Sorry. No, it just came to my mind. But like, I think something that we always do as well too is like, we have a conversation about the boundary before even setting the boundary to like make sure you're on board and make sure like I'm on board. Right. It's not just like, hey, by the way, I'm setting this boundary. It's like, no, hey, how do you feel? Are we on the same page? Because, I think that's really important to like have a communication.
I think that's great. And we'll touch on it and then we'll leave it off. Maybe like we'll do 5 minutes, or whatever on this. Because I think that's so important. So like when Lorna talks about the conversation that we have, like, let's say we want to spend more time in Simcoe building relationships here. When she's talking about it, she's like, hey, like, how do you feel about this? Do you feel the same way? Because sometimes your boundaries will affect other people, right? In this case, me and Lorna being in a relationship, if she says, no, I don't want to do a call, or I don't want any communication at 8, but I say yes, and people keep calling me to speak to her, that interferes with her boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you have to have that communication. So between partners, right? Hey, what are your boundaries and what are our boundaries as a couple? That's really important.
Yeah. And like I recently had some boundaries like more specific. And I asked you like, hey, how do you feel with me setting this boundary? You know, and you're like, hey, no, that makes total sense. Like, I'm fine with that. But like, you know, if I wanted to set a boundary and maybe you weren't okay with that, then like, you know, I would maybe like adjust, or we can, you know, figure out something together that would work best for us.
Yeah.
But I think that's important as well too. Like setting a boundary isn't just like, hey, I'm doing this, so like you better be okay with it. But it's like, hey, what are your thoughts on that? Does this make sense? Like, how do you feel about the boundary? Like, you know, do you feel like that's like a good idea? Like, are you on the same page? You know, I think that's important.
It gives different perspective.
Yeah.
It can make things more clear in terms of the boundaries, or you can find a better way to do something, right? Because when boundaries need to be put into place, it's when something isn't working the way that you want it to.
Yeah.
So if something's not working right or feeling right, this is where you need to be like, oh, okay, well, how do we approach this? But that's the best part about boundaries. You can change them at any time.
Yep.
You can make adjustments whenever you need.
Yep.
Because there's no limitation, right? Like you don't get like you only get 4 boundaries a month, right? It's like there's no limitation on the changes that you can make.
Yeah. So that is it for this episode of Getting Real with the Costas. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you do have any topics that you guys want us to cover, we are clearly open to talk about whatever and whatever, like anything. So you can message us and we can, you know, do an episode on that. But thank you guys so much for listening. We'd love your feedback. If you want to like send us a message, let me know, you know, or let us know how you're enjoying these little podcast episodes. That would, you know, be really helpful. So thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your day and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye guys.